You are.
I am.
You are. Love that song.
Oh man, so good, so good. Little Stone Temple Pilots are, of course, second time we've had them on.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's cool. Yeah, I love it.
What was the first one? Plush?
Interstate Love Song.
Interstate Love Song. Okay, got it.
Interstate Love Song. And again, for those listening, and welcome back to GEOHOLICS first and foremost. But as you may or may not know, we have a playlist on Spotify, and it's every song from every episode in chronological order. And for those of you that don't know, we allow our guests to provide their favorite musical artist. And then we take the liberty to pick our favorite song or songs from that artist.
And sometimes the guest wants a specific song, and other times they don't. So, but we say it all the time. But the most eclectic playlist you're gonna find, if you're interested in, or if you got an upcoming 18-hour road trip, we highly recommend hitting the GEOHOLICS playlist.
Indeed, you'll not be let down.
Right,
trust me.
Right.
We are, of course, as always, in the MLID studio. And as always, we need to talk about Wingtra Ground, because this is like the latest and greatest thing when it comes to Wingtra and MLID.
That's right.
It's an all-in-one kit for aerial surveys. It combines all the elements of a ground control setup. GNSS receivers are included, powered by MLID, of course, checkpoints, and all the necessary tools to have a successful mission. It automatically connects to the Wingtra tablet, providing step-by-step setup guidance for fast and error-free base and checkpoint setup. To find out more, go to emlid.com. And always, at this time of the episode, I say, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing very well, my friend.
You got a lot going on.
What's going on? Summer's supposed to be like, you kind of sit back and get back into the, it's not a grind, but there's not any holidays. There's not any big thing, summer's just supposed to be, everything. Work's usually busy, and then you got some vacations, and that's pretty much it, right? Well, I'm kind of in the middle of a house move,
potentially,
and an office move.
Selfishly, I'm hoping the house move goes through. Because it's going to be like a 5-minute bike ride from me.
Yeah. We can start carpooling to the studio.
We can rendezvous on the canal.
Yeah, we absolutely could.
Yes. We're gonna have to move the studio too then.
But we'll see. We got a lot of things that need to fall into place. But so it's been a little crazy at the Faber household. But my house is definitely cleanest that it ever has been. I put a fork down and it's like it's one of those things.
I'm good, man. I am so good. Just super busy. It's like you said, that time of the year. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of big things happening, and hopefully some things are going to fall my way as far as sales go. And if so, it's going to be a really, really good year.
2026 is already starting to look pretty wild and crazy. So I'm guessing you're the same.
Yep. I am manifesting a lot of good things for the both of us. How about that?
I am confident that when you manifest it, it happens.
It does happen more times than not.
Right.
So buckle up, buddy.
Consider me buckled.
And of course, we have the TopoDot Song of the Week. As you know, TopoDot is the industry leader in digital twin production from Point Cloud Data.
I got my TopoDot cup.
Yes, those cups are super nice.
Oh, it's my daily.
It is
a daily use. Yeah.
But did you know that TopoDot offers a total data governance solution for free? Take control of your data with TopoShare. This is really catching some momentum, this TopoShare thing.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Create your own data warehouse, share and manage access to project data, and streamline your production process at the lowest possible cost. To find out more, go to topodot.com. Tell us about that opening number, Sean.
That song was called Sex Type Thing. As we said before, Stone Temple Pilots, American rock band from San Diego, California.
Love San Diego.
Originally consisted of Scott Weiland, brothers Dean DeLeo, we'll go DeLeo, Dean DeLeo, Robert DeLeo, and Eric Kretz. The band's lineup remained unchanged from its formation in 1989 until the firing of Weiland in February 2013. Watch out, I'm coming for you next. The band's debut album, Core, everyone had this album, released in 1992, was a major commercial success, and SDP went on to become one of the most successful bands in the 90s, selling more than 18 million albums in the United States and 40 million worldwide.
Really good band.
And when you think of, I don't know, would you call them grunge?
I would.
Yeah, in that 90s grunge.
I would put them in that category.
They obviously weren't from Seattle, but they were in that. For me growing up, my age was,
Yep.
You definitely had the Nirvana albums, you had Stone Temple Pilots, you had Chili
Mhm.
Peppers, you
Alice
had
in
all
Chains, maybe?
yeah, oh yeah, definitely had Alice in Chains. That was in that Pearl Jam. That was in that group that everybody had that core album.
Yep. Agreed. And I have seen them without Scott Weiland, of course.
How was that?
Amazing. The guy that they had fill in or take his place, incredible. And the guy's from Arizona, actually, originally.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yep. So it's an amazing show. Good stuff. We are in the Altera studio. As always, Altera Central is the authorized premier Trimble dealer for survey, mapping, GIS, forensics, and marine equipment in Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico. They also offer field supplies and can deliver them right to your job site. Super convenient, all backed by a service department with one of the fastest turnarounds in the nation. Can confirm. And to find out more, as always, go to alteracentral.com.
I can say that I think they may have some 0% financing going on.
Yep.
That I think for the month of June.
Yeah.
Probably trying to unload some stuff before the new stuff comes in.
I think you're right.
So I mean, we're jumping on it. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy it,
it's
it
a
now.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
And if you go to the GeoHolics marketplace, shameless plug, go to geoholics.com, go to the marketplace tab, and there's a bunch of different deals there from our friends of the program for GeoHolics listeners. So I would highly recommend going and checking that out. Not just once, I would check it out on at least a monthly basis because it changes often.
It does. And that is not a shameless plug. That is
that's not shameless.
Yeah, that is that I'm not gonna say shameful plug, but we earned that plug.
All right, moving on to the Esri Weekly Pro Tip. Esri, of course, is advancing the power of geography for business, government, and society by making the world's most powerful GIS software. To find out more, go to esri.com. I like this one a lot.
I like that too. It makes me think a little bit. So here we go. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get.
Yeah.
That was Dale Carnegie.
What do you think of that?
Kind of wrap my head around that a little bit. I mean, I understand the success part is wanting what you get.
Hold on, no. Success is getting what you want. That's like the greed part of it, right? Like let's say I want a 69 Charger. And I work my ass off to get it, and then I get it. Is that success? I mean, it's material success.
Yeah, I would call that.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how you define success, right?
But the happiness part of like if you wanted a boy and you got a boy, then if you wanted to have a kid and it was you were like, man, I really want a boy.
Yeah.
And then you got a boy, then you're happy because you like that doesn't make sense.
No, it does not.
I don't know about this happiness is wanting what you get.
Wanting what you get. Being satisfied.
So I can see that.
Being content.
Yes, I would say.
Yeah,
I guess that's another word.
All right.
Maybe a little outside of our brain power.
Let's keep this rolling here. All right. Next up, the GeoSearch Career Corner. Looking to hire top talent in the geosciences, GeoSearch has you covered with a free job posting just for GeoHolics listeners. As a full-service recruiting company, they specialize in connecting top professionals with the right opportunities.
Their ad posting service, your job listing reaches nearly 34,000 engaged LinkedIn professionals, maximizing exposure to qualified candidates. Also, don't miss the chance to build your dream team. To claim your complimentary job post, email Liz, Liz, at geosearch.com today. I just did it last week.
Did you really?
I realized I didn't have one. I wasn't even. I read this every week all year, and I have not even taken them. Now we are taking advantage of that.
Awesome.
Throwing up a posting, see what happens.
Cool.
Go check it out. It's good. It's good stuff. And
cool.
As always, happy mapping.
Love the GeoSearch folks. So good to deal with too. I would highly recommend visiting geosearch.com.
I mean,
first chance you get.
Yeah, you're not really gonna
today.
You're not gonna
ASAP. Right now. All right. The GeoNet count of the week. GeoNet is the world's largest blockchain-based RTK network, providing RTK service precise enough for professional surveying, construction, and drone applications.
All right. Current count 17,563 satellite miners, up from 16,946 last week.
Mhm.
Thousands of cities. We can't even count the
I stopped
cities
counting.
anymore.
Yep.
And 145 countries. Find out more at geonet.com. Be sure to click on the Find a Hex tab to see if you can put one on your house or place of business and start making money.
Mm.
Kent, my friend, weekly update. How is the purchase of your GeoNet satellite miners going?
Our
Yes,
GeoNet
our.
satellite miners. Actually, checks in the mail. I just got an email today saying that they're going to be delivered probably tomorrow.
They are going to be
Yes.
delivered. Where are they coming? To your house?
Yeah, to my house.
More updates to follow.
Yeah, and this made me think because over 145 countries, and it made me think, like, how many countries are there? Do you know?
That's like 206.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You'll have to Google that when you get a break. I am so curious. All right. One last thing about GeoNet. They, of course, have a partnership with Bad Elf, and they've teamed up to provide a truly amazing offer. If you've listened to last week's show, or you will listen to last week's show, we had Bad Elf, Larry from Bad Elf, and we had Mike on from GeoNet, and they talked about this. For $999.99, you can get a GeoNet RTK service for 5 years. That's ridiculous, ridiculously reasonable. GeoNet is also offering to place a base station, like we just talked about, should there not be a base station within 40-kilometer radius of your operating area, with a commitment to this 1 year or 5-year subscription. To find out more about all of this, go to bad-elf.com/GeoNet. I see you Googling over there.
There are 195 recognized countries. And I was curious what 206 is. 206 is number of bones in the human body. I knew I had that number in my head. It was around something. So yes.
I can't fault you for that. Okay. Countries, bones, I get it.
It's one of those numbers around 200. So
there you go. All right, let's get our guests in here.
Let's do that.
I am excited about this conversation tonight. But they, of course, our guests are sponsored, as always, by Trimble, dedicated to big thinking innovation. Together with their worldwide distributor partners, the Trimble Geospatial team is working with current and future generations of surveyors for a more sustainable future. And of course, to find out more, go to geospatial.trimble.com. And I don't think we talked about it, but Trimble sponsored a NASCAR last week or the week before. Ryan Priest was the driver. The car was freaking amazing. It was ridiculous. And of course, I jumped online, ordered some hats and some stickers and some koozies and all the cool stuff they have to offer. So if you're listening to this, you should do the same, because it's not very often that a company in the geospatial realm sponsors something like a NASCAR. So really cool.
That's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
All right, so we've got Rich Leaver with us. Rich, born in Monroe, Wisconsin, and raised on a dairy farm in Judah, Wisconsin. He went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. Hobbies include nature observing, hiking, genealogy, and hanging out with his grandchildren. His job title is, I like this, a geospatial agent, paying the bills as a private land surveyor. Career highlights include he's been serving since the mid-70s. He was the Dodge County surveyor. He's an author, and he is an officer of change. We also have Matt O'Rourke with us. Matt, born in Columbus, Wisconsin, grew up in Hartford, Wisconsin. Education includes attending Madison Area Tech College, now called Madison College. Hobbies include hanging out with kids, hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, and hanging out at the lake house, which is a lot of fun this time of year. Job title is Vice President at Land Tech Surveying. Career highlights, successfully transitioning, if you work for a larger firm, 150-person firm, to what was a 2-person firm, and helping grow it to 11 people over just a short amount of time, and in general, overcoming professional challenges.
Yeah, I want to hear about that some more. So,
Rick, Matt, welcome to the GEOHOLICS. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Did you have something you want to circle back on there, Sean?
No, I'm good. No, I said I just wanted to hear more about that, but we will as we go.
Oh, okay. Right on. One thing I want to talk about, because it's something I miss dearly from living in the Midwest, is snowmobiling. Do you get to do that a lot, Matt?
Not nearly enough.
Not enough.
In southern Wisconsin, over the last 20 years, we haven't had the winters that we used to, I remember as a kid. Whatever it may be, but with busy with kids, we pretty much got to travel to northern Wisconsin or Michigan to hit the real snow. But
Yeah.
I do enough to keep myself, I guess, to scratch the itch, if you will. And
Yep.
I got my kids are getting into it a little bit, so we have a good
That's
time with it.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think when we kind of had a pre-show conversation, I told you guys that my grandparents lived up near Hayward, Wisconsin, and I can remember going up there as a kid. They had a couple snowmobiles, and in the wintertime up there, it's like snowmobiles are the mode of transportation. Like we would hop on these snowmobiles and go from like tavern to tavern to tavern. It was maybe that you know what
That
this
sounds
explains a
amazing.
lot, doesn't
Actually,
it?
it does.
This
Yeah.
explains a lot. I was probably like 10 or 12 at the time. I don't know, but apparently I've never forgotten that. Only now I drive, unfortunately. Which I shouldn't, but yes. But anyway, so we got a lot to talk about and unpack here. And Rich, I'm gonna let you kind of kick this off. I was very intrigued when I saw your article about the Swiss model when it comes to a cadastral option, and I'm very very curious to hear one how you found out about it, and two what makes you excited about it.
Good question. I started out by contacting three different countries: Australia, New Zealand, and Switzerland. And Switzerland got back to me. So I said, well, okay, they're going to talk with me. So I will continue this conversation. And got to asking questions of what's going on over there compared to how we work here in this country. And I was very impressed with what I found. I had 20 questions for Dr. Daniel Stoidler at the time. And what he told me kind of blew me away, to
Mm,
be quite frank.
yeah, tell us more.
Pardon?
I said, tell us more.
Well, then I said, is there any way you guys can come over here to the United States and give us a little bit of a rundown of what you guys are all doing? And he proceeded to convince me to take a trip to Switzerland, and I just didn't go by myself. I went around advertising through ACSM and other places. I tried to get some other U.S. surveyors involved and excited about this and take the trip with me. So I did that. And in 2018, we went over there and had a wonderful time. 3 days over there. Um, it's a great time learning about how their system works compared to ours. And to sum it up, I just say the Switzerland and U.S. It's like night and day different. That's all I can say at this point in time.
Well, let's dig a little deeper into that. When you say it's night and day different, what are some of the biggest differences that you've seen?
Well, they take an approach where, first of all, there's an authority. In this country, I don't think I can identify, or let me talk about my state, or
Hmm.
more my county, or let's go state. I don't think I can identify an authority in land surveying that I can go to and receive guidance, support, direction on surveying. It's pretty much I have a listing in the internet, or people find me that way and they ask for me to do property surveys. So I go out and
Hmm.
do one survey at a time. And in Switzerland, they have surveyed basically the entire country. And how did they do that? They had an authority, and they had authorities in the cantons under the federal authority. And they contracted with the private sector through the cantons, and they basically have resurveyed the entire country. So everything is surveyed accurately. I found that hard to believe until I
Hmm.
really thought about it, and it soaked in finally. But their whole country is surveyed accurately, and their primary form of evidence is coordinates. And so even a landowner can go to their website and download property corner information and find out where their property corners are, for example. So I found that pretty fascinating. In Switzerland, the cadastral surveying profession is truly a profession that's on par with other professions like civil engineers and lawyers, what have you. It's run a whole lot differently than it's run in this country or in my state, for example.
Yeah. So what is their cadastral system like? Do they have like a rectangular system or something along those lines, or is it more like a meets and bounds type thing?
I would say it's more meets and bounds like you find in our eastern states. Um, they don't have the USPLS system, of course, but they have a very mountainous terrain, and they have
Mm.
figured out where all the property ownership is within their country by just
Hmm.
employing land surveyors through the years. They started this in 1912. They started with the concept of there cannot be any parcel ownership without parcel registration. And with parcel registration, there needs to be surveying involved. So surveyors were playing a very key role as far as in history, as far back as 1912. So they've been working on this for quite a while. So I found that really fascinating. It's also interesting that in Switzerland they have Leica, of course.
Hmm.
We got to visit the Leica factory on the third day of our trip. But it's
Cool.
interesting how the Swiss selected Trimble
Mm.
to put in their high density network of RTK or base stations. That's correct terminology.
Hmm.
So they used Trimble to set that up through their entire country. So on
Wow.
the second day, I asked, well, what's the software that drives your system in the office? ESRI. So I'm going, okay,
Wow.
I feel right at home here.
Yeah.
But it's not so much, we all have the same technology.
Hmm.
But in this country, we are under the direction of local elected politicians who pretty much decide the fate of, for example, county surveyor positions in 72 counties in Wisconsin. And some counties have a full-time county surveyor and other counties have none. Some counties have a part-time county surveyor. That
Hmm.
is very inconsistent. And each of the counties in Wisconsin is kind of doing their own thing. And if you look nationally, there's 3,300 counties. And I would say in those 3,300 counties, they're pretty much doing their own individual unique thing too. So there is really
Mm.
no statewide, countrywide
Hmm.
uniformity. Some counties are doing great at certain things, and other counties are still lagging behind. That's not
Sure.
so in Switzerland. They're all basically on the same page with the federal authority, with the reach over the authorities in the cantons who are contracting with the private sector to get all this done. So they've done a beautiful job. Now you say, well, it's already done. So what are they going to do now? Well, they're
Yeah.
concentrating on their easements and their utilities, and
Mm.
they call it the pipe cadastre.
Oh,
So that's what they're
interesting.
concentrating on now.
Interesting. So what is the job of a surveyor in Switzerland then? Like you say, if everything is, been surveyed, been established, there's coordinates on all the property corners, the way I'm understanding it. What is the job of the surveyor there? And is there a shortage of surveyors there?
The job of the surveyor is to, on pretty much in new developments or dividing land or developing land, uh, they call upon the Swiss surveyors to do new surveys.
Mm.
They don't. They might get involved in resurveys, but the difference between them and us is they contract to the private sector. They have a firm, say in the city of, they might have two or three firms in the large city of Zurich that the population of the citizens can call upon to, if they need land surveying assistance in finding their property corners. Okay, I said that
Hmm.
landowners can find their own property corners. Maybe some don't want to find their own property corners, so they call the surveyor,
Mm.
and that's great. So their role is probably more in new highways, new subdivisions, new development, new surveys. That's what the
Hmm.
surveyors are primarily doing, and supporting the citizens and just finding the lot corners that are already accurately surveyed and
Hmm.
existing, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, let's
Do you
face
think
it. If
do you
you,
think that takes out some of the fun for you? Because I know some of the fun for you in this profession is going out and finding corners and doing that Indiana Jones stuff where you have to retrace it. Well, that goes away in this scenario, right?
Hey, I'm about to retire. I'm fine with it. This sounds like a great idea. This sounds like an amazing idea to me. No, but like, let's face it, if you send 3 surveyors out to survey a 5-acre parcel, let's say, in most cases, you're going to get 3 different answers.
Well, I understand that, but you're very precise in what that answer is. And, you know, when you say 3 different answers, that means it could be in 3 relatively similar places, just slightly different.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So it definitely does away with the pin cushion that we talk about quite often.
Correct. Well, it basically takes out that finding anything, you already have it established, but it doesn't mean that there's an accurate topo for the whole country or anything, anything
True.
you need to do to design or improve or like Rich was saying, any new construction, that's all the same. It's just, it takes out the guesswork on where is the property line that is set and everyone knows it. And there's no argument. Right?
I don't think I have a problem with that.
Oh, okay.
Do you?
Just for some reason I thought you would.
There's plenty of other things for surveyors to do. So Matt, you're a younger surveyor in comparison to Rich and myself. What are your thoughts on this idea?
As a private sector surveyor with a firm of 11 people, I'm doing all kinds of different surveying, and the boundary survey aspect of it, for the most part, just muddles the water and slows down the process of getting people what they want and what they need. One of my first crew chiefs I worked with, 20 years ago, he just told me, he's like, man, nobody wants to pay for survey. It's just, it's like we're the redheaded stepchild at some point. It's like, oh man, how often do people try to avoid getting a survey done? Yeah. They avoid it. They only get it done when they absolutely have to, so if I think it would open up the floodgates for people to get things done what they want. I mean, there's people that don't have a lot of money that want to do something in their small backyard, and they call somebody to come and do a survey, and they're like, well, that's more than what I want to spend on my pool, so just looking at it that way.
Sure.
The goal for the end of my career is to kick this off and to spend the rest of it, or a good chunk of it, doing resurveys. And then maybe at the end of it, I'm looking back and seeing the next generation see, the fruits of this labor. I just had a real quick example. Recently, we have a new hire, drafting tech, in our office. And as a lot of people in our company, we hired them with like no training in like survey, let's say. She's got a little background in it. I'm showing her an ancient subdivision plat, and instantly she's got 2 weeks of experience. She's like, why are we looking at that? It's so old, And I'm like, well, this is how we have to do it, and she's just kind of like, so like that next generation, we got to look out for them. And, I understand the digging back to it and the, the research and all that stuff might be gone, but hey, like nothing's going to last forever. So,
yeah.
Have you ever thought that like this, all the people then surveying, whether they're at the end of their career, you basically have 2 camps. You have like the people that really like history, and then you have the people that really like technology. Like we always use the Indiana Jones. Like Indiana Jones wasn't out there with GPR and a bunch of like he had a whip. Like it's very, very old school. Yeah. Like so old school where it's like he doesn't even think you don't believe it. And then who we want, and some of the things we talk about bringing people into the profession is all this great technology and you can do this with automation and robots and satellites. It seems like polar opposites of the 2 people you're looking for.
It's a good point. No doubt about it. And one of the things that just came to my mind, it's like, we're getting to the point now, we talk about it a lot, you don't necessarily in many cases have to be a surveyor to do mobile LiDAR, terrestrial LiDAR, or any topo, or even construction staking, right? So it's getting to the point where all surveyors are going to have really is boundary, right? So if you implement something like this for the boundary portion of it, what's left?
Well, we talk about this too. Like, I think we need to redefine what a surveyor is. And unfortunately, the traditional surveyor may not exist in the same form
I think
20 years from now than it did 20 years ago.
That's happening.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
But I
No
think
doubt
we
about
all see the benefit of what Rich is talking about.
it.
And
I think so. Yeah.
and maybe kick this back to Rich. Have you thought about what it would look like if one county decided, you know what, we're going to do this? Get this county, you know, the county approval, you know, reallocate the funds, go out there and establish every property boundary and say, okay, now this is it.
Yeah.
Have you thought about what that would look like in a state where only one county did it?
Yes. First of all, it's going to save the landowners a lot of money.
I
Because,
don't disagree with that at all.
You're surveying with economies of scale, and you're surveying entire blocks or regions all together, and it all gets taken care of. One thing about replatting, if you know the statutes in Wisconsin, it's a very fair process. So if there's a replatting situation going on, the landowners have a voice in that. So if the land surveyor sets something, they call them temporary points. They notify the landowners that, are you okay with this? Now, one thing that in the single resurvey in the state of Wisconsin, there is no requirement to notify the adjoiners. So if I was not a surveyor and I was just a neighbor coming home or a landowner coming home one day after work, and I noticed this neighbor had his property surveyed, they go, oh, what's that? I don't quite agree with that. Well, I don't have much recourse except to hire my own surveyor, or maybe even hire a lawyer to represent my interests if there's a issue with the boundary. Whereas if you replat the entire thing altogether, everybody has a chance to weigh in and say, I don't agree with that. And the surveyor has to make an adjustment. So I think that's a beautiful thing. It's serving the public well. The cost of resurveying or replatting in this particular case is 10, 20% of what it would cost for a full resurvey. So it's like, why aren't we doing this? Because the decisions to do that are primarily in the hands of the locally elected politicians in cities, villages, towns, and the county board. And they don't quite understand the benefits of replatting. I, as a surveyor, I've done replatting when I was county surveyor, and it's a wonderful process. So I got interested in doing some of those things, and I go, hey, is there a place in this world that I can go to and find a similar approach that I've envisioned in say in my county when I was county surveyor? And I go, well, yeah, there is. Switzerland finally came along, and I go, hey, this is what I've been thinking about my entire career. And I've been, for the last 20 years, focused on what are the issues facing land surveyors? What are they struggling with? And if Will Wing joins us in a little bit, he can probably testify that he works 60, 80 hours a week sometimes. And that's burnout time. But I'll let him speak to that. Matt, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that, you know, how Rich and I, you know, got together on this collaboration, you know, both of us trying to work on in our state, you know, we kind of ran into each other over a boundary dispute. And, you
That's
know,
awesome.
I did one survey, he did a survey, and we got together and had breakfast, and we started talking about, you know, our survey war stories, and found out we had a lot in common with each other. And, you know, he just started telling me about his experience, and the light just kind of went on in my head, and I guess I got Rich pilled, you know, like he got me thinking about this new system, and then I started learning more from him, and you know, I'm totally on board with it. That's kind of how I got involved with it. So
yeah. I mean, it's hard. I don't know. Like this whole concept is new to me, but like on the surface, I'm like, it's hard not to think it's a good idea, right? So I'm curious, when you guys have obviously floated this out to other surveyors, whether it be locally or regionally or whatever. I'm curious what the reaction has been.
Matt, would you like to speak to that?
yeah, sure. I mean, we did a presentation in 2022 or 23, Rich, I forget, at our state conference, and it was not a heavily attended session. We had about 40 attendees, but we had some really interesting responses to that, you know, in our session review. Most of it, you know, only, you know, maybe 30% of the people responded, but I would say out of the 30%, you know, 80% of those people were in favor of it. But they're kind of like you can't, they're like, we understand this, but this is really upsetting the apple cart was one of the things, you know, because we know that, you know, the title companies and the legal professionals have kind of the keys to like ordering surveys when they need to be done, as long with the, you know, counties and stuff. But one of them really stood out to me was that they said it was an interesting topic worth exploring, and we were showing tremendous courage in even presenting it. So right there, like, I knew that we were over the target on something that's bigger than what we are, and people are looking to us for answers, and we don't have all the answers. All we have is experience, and Rich is the one with the, you know, he's our expert, but even he would admit, and he took a break, that he's not an expert. We need to invest in educating ourselves on the system. That's where we want to go with this, is how can we find, you know, not everyone's going to agree with this. Not everyone's going to want to do it. I think I heard once that when the American Revolution was going on, something like only 13% or a little over 10% of the people were actually involved in it, like fighting, money, the whole thing. So other people are just sitting on the sideline. Well, we'll just deal with whatever the fallout is of this, you know. So we're looking for like-minded individuals and a bigger audience, and, you know, that's kind of where we're going with it.
Yep.
I think the big thing that jumps out to me is, and like Rich said, you know, Switzerland started this in 1912, and they kind of decided they were going to do it, and they've been doing it for over 100 years, and now that's what we got. We haven't. So anyone is going to start already with something, and then we're going to replat it all. And what happens if all of a sudden on day zero, the county, I'm going to use the county as the county says, okay, here we did it. Here's everyone's property boundaries. We all agreed on it internally, and here it is. And then what happens when whatever percentage of homeowners all of a sudden say, okay, well, my property was there. I thought it was here. Now my fence isn't on my property anymore. And are we creating an issue where there wasn't one before? Like, my neighbor and I had never had a complaint, and everyone agreed that the fence was there. That's the property line. And then all of a sudden we say, guess what? It's not.
Surveyors are doing that all the time as it is.
But that's when there already is a reason to go out there and look for it. It almost seems like we're gonna uncover problems that weren't problems. So we're kind of gonna create them a little bit. Is that something that has been kicked around in this before?
Well, as I stated before, in replatting, they call it assessor's platting in Wisconsin. Every landowner has a right to contest a surveyor's decision. So if the temporary point that the surveyor sets is not on the fence line, either landowner can say, we always thought the fence line was the line. Surveyor will go, fine. You want to make it the line? We'll make it the line.
Yeah.
So that's how that's resolved.
Oh yeah.
I think the thing about our system right now is people can't afford me. When they call me up, they're saying, well, I have a house on Center Street or something in Beaver Dam, and I go, well, I just looked up your plat, and it was done in 1856. And I'm, as a surveyor, I'm supposed to jump into that plat and survey one parcel. And I've been doing this too long to say that makes any sense anymore. So I'm saying it doesn't make sense anymore. And every time I turn around, well, why do you need a survey? Well, the building inspector said I need to hire a surveyor to get my line right. Okay. Maybe I'm not the guy for you, because I'd have to survey all the neighbors' properties anyway to get your property right, so there won't be a contest in the end. So I'm doing all this work for one client, have to charge that one client, and I don't think that's fairness anymore. I think that's not right.
That's a really good point, because you're surveying the entire block to survey that lot, you know, hypothetically.
Right.
So you're establishing the entire block anyways, but you're just charging that one person for their lot. They're paying for all the work that it's required to do the entire block. just to get their
Right.
lot in there. Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
all my information that I collect during the course of that survey is not readily available to any competitor, because I don't want my competitor to have it, because
Yeah.
he's going to come in and do a survey for a fraction of the cost that I did it for. So why would I want to
Yeah.
share that with him? Whereas in
Well,
Switzerland,
Rich, he's not really your competitor, though, right?
So
all
interesting.
their survey information is publicly available, and all
Yeah.
surveyors benefit by it, and all
Yeah.
landowners benefit
And
by
I
it.
and I've thought about that a lot. Like,
So interesting.
who can do this $500 wall survey when that's an issue, or so there's a who I don't know what survey firm out there can do that work. I know
They do it.
most of the people I talk to don't do that.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't know
you're
where
hanging
they
around with
are.
the right people, Sean. Yeah.
I know, but
That's
if
good.
we're the right people, then
Yeah.
that means that they're the most of the homeowners are hiring the wrong people and
Unfortunately.
perpetuating the problem, right?
Yep. Definitely. Hey, Will Wing just hopped on. Hey, Will.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going good, man. Good to see you. Where you at?
Yes, the parking lot in Pine Top, Arizona.
Oh, there you go. It's cooler up there.
Definitely cooler up there.
Yeah. Yep. Good for you. I'm jealous. Don't come back to the valley. It sucks here.
Right. Yeah, we
So
were up at the Zuni doing a survey camp for the Zuni Pueblo kids.
Nice. Very cool. You're a good guy, Will.
Glad I could make it. Then we had the NSPS mentorship meeting. So I rolled out of that right into this. So we're going.
There we go. There we go.
Keep it going. Keep the momentum going.
All right. Well, hop in whenever you got something to add to the conversation. We've just been talking about the Swiss model with Rich and Matt here a little bit, and we're to the point now where I guess my next question is for Rich and Matt. I'd like for you both to respond to this. Is who this model or this concept? Who is it going to benefit the most, and who is probably most likely maybe not going to benefit from it?
I think the landowners are going to benefit the most, followed by surveyors, but a close second or third are the GIS people. And I say that thinking of our system is pretty much driven by legal descriptions, text-based legal descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if you look at our system closely, it's all based on every deed that's recorded is handled by the legal profession, and it's pretty much a text-based deed. Now, there are recorded surveys in Wisconsin, there are recorded plats, but they're not in the format that are readily available for use by surveyors. They're in a TIFF image format, and that is not something it's very useful information when I need to work in that plat, but I need to work in a digital format. So in contrast, Switzerland they have determined that legal descriptions, text-based descriptions, are inefficient. So they have gotten rid of all these text-based descriptions. And I think Will can attest to this. I know Matt can attest to this, that when you do a survey, you have to look up the deeds of record and sort through all that stuff. And the only way you can sort through it and understand it is to draw it out anyway. So
right.
If you have to draw it out and map it out anyway, why don't we just map it out in the first place accurately and forget the words, make it a digital map, make it available to everybody. And Matt, I'll let you finish or continue.
Yeah, go for it, Matt.
Yeah, I think that, I was thinking, surveyors would benefit the most. I mean, I think we're struggling to replenish ourselves, to revitalize ourselves, to make ourselves relevant, other than just kind of like a commodity that people will call up to be, Johnny on the spot to come and do something when they need it. And I think that's kind of why we are where we're at with it. We're trying to, preach to the surveyors. And there's some that understand and there's some that just don't, and then landowners follow. And, I guess you could say that, the major stakeholders, DOTs, any government, utilities. But even when you think about utilities or DOTs, like all of that funnels back down to the individual taxpayer. So
Yep.
if there, all of our DOTs and our utilities and everything are funded by Joe homeowner or Joe property owner, like it all trickles back down to them. So it's all of us, really.
Yeah, I love this coordinate-based model. I really do. And I think that this does, we talked about, even in our keynote, we talked about how surveyors and GIS professionals are going to kind of become one. And this
it's funny because
is
I was thinking
making
about
that
that.
happen.
I think this is a mechanism to, like Rich said, the GIS folks are going to benefit. And I think this is a way where the two can really start to overlap. And then all of a sudden we're all using the same one.
Yep.
What about usually what moves the needle in stuff like this is whoever has the most pull politically, or, whoever has the biggest lobby. Obviously the surveying lobby is non-existent, or but are the attorneys, are the title agencies, those guys, are they going to be negatively impacted or positively impacted? Because that's who is going to move the decision makers to make this decision. Is unfortunately the survey lobby doesn't have enough pull.
Man, I think it's going to make it would, if it happened, I think it would make things so much more efficient.
Yeah. So if you get the title agency and the title attorneys on board, and they think that but my question would be, would that mean it'd be more efficient? Does that mean they can charge less for their services? And if that's the case, that might be the hill to climb, because they're not going to advocate for you and they have more pull than we do.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if that's a question, but what do you guys think about that?
Lawyers will always be needed at real estate closings, and that's true in Switzerland.
Sure.
They're always needed to represent the parties. I think the only minor difference, or major difference, however you want to look at it, is that the legal description is no longer going to be a text-based document. It's going to be a graphic, like what you'd see in your GIS.
Yeah.
Okay. And they actually use their GIS or their mapping in Switzerland they use the PIN number on a GIS. And if you look at in my county, for example, there's a disclaimer on all the tax descriptions in my county. There's a disclaimer: these tax descriptions shall not be used to transfer property. In other words, you got to go back to that deed. Now, people have spent a lot of hours trying to understand what that deed says, so they try to simplify it into what's called an abbreviated tax description, which I think is nice, because everybody likes to work with less and get to the point. What is this deed saying? So we have what's called real property listers in Wisconsin that figure all this out. And then we have the GIS people that map it. But there's a huge disclaimer on our GIS, on our county GISs in Wisconsin. The disclaimer is, you can't trust this stuff. You want to use it, fine, but you can't trust this stuff.
Yep.
So, and in regard to the lawyers, I've seen a new crop of lawyers come on the scene in the last 20 years. A lot of older fellows have retired. So I think the new crop can understand the benefits of still representing the people at the closings. That's important. Lawyers need to do that.
Yeah.
But simply rely upon a surveyor's graphic, which Switzerland has. We do not have that yet. We're not even close. But at some point, we have to start considering, is it worth pursuing?
Sure. I want to take that one step further, because I was thinking that before you said it about the surveying profession. We've still got a bunch of older surveyors that would not be in favor of this, but yet I think the younger surveyors would think this is an amazing idea, because they kind of think this way to begin with, right? So I think that we're both saying the same thing here.
Well, and I think what you're saying is that there might be a section of surveyors in the community that really, really like text legal descriptions, and like that's their niche and that's what they do really well, and that's just going to be eliminated. And I think that's just a reality we have to confront, because and it also may coincide with, if there's less surveyors now than there were 30 years ago.
Sure.
How are you going to deal with that? Well, one way is to get
rid
of some of the garbage that surveyors do that they shouldn't have to do.
Yep. Agreed. And Rich, kudos to you, by the way. I mean, you're obviously in that older generation of surveyor, and you you have taken upon yourself to, stay relevant, to do this research, and to be thinking outside the box. And I just want to say, again, I mean, thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your, thank you.
Yeah. So,
I don't want to pass this profession as I see it right now, as it exists right now, on to the younger generation. And I've talked to a lot of people, and sometimes
Interesting.
it falls on deaf ears. But I think if there's a better model out there, and Switzerland has proven there's a better model, and I've seen so many frustrations, but not just myself, but other surveyors through the years talking at conferences,
mm,
and I hear the sometimes complaints, frustrations, problems that are never solved. And I
yeah,
go, at the end of my career, I'm going to go, well, I think it's incumbent upon me when I'm gone to say, hey, go to Switzerland. They'll help you out.
yeah,
There's more people
yeah.
over there that can help you out than I can. And so I'm trying to point everybody to a new model that I think is awesome. So I
Mhm,
think it solves 99% of our problems here in this country if we could start it and get it going.
mhm.
Now, will it be birth pangs? Of course. Will it be growing pains? Of course. But I think it has to be something that we consider as a worthy pursuit. Matt, anything to add to that?
That's pretty spot on. I pretty much agree with most of everything Rich has ever told me about this system, and just seeing the benefits that I could see in my own career and future generations. I know that there's still profits to be made in surveying after the boundaries are there.
Sure.
If the boundaries are solved, I know where good profit is, and being an expert measurer, and understanding
Mhm.
how to direct people, and we're very technically sound, problem solvers. And just because if we don't have boundary solved doesn't mean we can't still be history buffs, and
Yep.
teach the next generation about what was done to get to this point.
Yeah, because like you said, I mean, there's been hundreds of years of work put into what we currently have. And let's talk about at least one of the elephants in the room. There's going to be a cost associated with, making this happen. I mean, who, where, who's going to cover that?
Well, and how do you convince taxpayers that, okay, believe me, this is a better idea, because if you ever need a survey, it's going to be way cheaper than it would be currently. And I don't know if that's a big enough sell.
Yeah, I'm
You
sure you guys
really
have
need,
thought about this a lot.
yeah, you really need solid use cases to be able to sell
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
point, right? Like you need to find some situations where you had a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar power plant that was going in, or a solar farm that, there was a 10-foot bust on the section lines, and now it just costs those guys and the taxpayers billions of dollars to fix the road, redo everything. I think we
Mhm.
really got to identify those lessons learned, and those we used to always have to build a business proposal if you wanted to change anything, but you had to show use cases on why you wanted to do it. And
Mhm.
I mean, since we've had, in my email, I said we had GDAX, our system.
Yep.
So we've had GDAX with our section corners being, in our county, pretty much everyone agrees on them. It's saved, millions of dollars, but it's hard to document that, So I think we really need to start finding use cases where you can document and say, look, here's a situation, and this is one of many that can happen. Whether
Mhm.
it's lawsuits, whether it's construction issues or whatever. But those are the things that those people will listen to, because that affects their job, right? Like that. So yeah, use cases.
We do start with like Rhode Island or something, like start a really, really small state and see if you can pull it off.
Probably a lot of parcels in Rhode Island. I'm thinking like rural Montana or something where there's
Well,
like,
here's the thing. Today I was on the Zuni Indian Reservation, right? Talking with, we met with the governor, with the lieutenant, and I asked them, like, said, how does your land system work here?
Yeah.
And they just all shook their head, and they go, well, it's,
yeah,
the whole point of us being there was to train their future surveyors so that they can have their own surveyor for the tribe survey the land, because the history that they know is not written at all. So it's almost the opposite of what Rich is dealing with, and a lot of us are dealing with. but nothing was ever written. So it was just kind of, you got the land as long as you used it. But if, you know, as generations went on, not as many people were farmers and ranchers. And so then it got taken over for, you know, different uses. But when I was telling him about, I said, I have a meeting tonight where we're going to talk about Switzerland and the way that they, you know, deal with their lands. And he was interested in that. He was very interested. And he said that they'd love to have something like that, but it's just constant battles. You know what I mean? And lawsuits and just.
I think, dude, I actually think you're onto something there. As far as, you know, maybe this would be something that could be, you know, tried on one of the reservations like you're talking about. And to be honest with you, you know, there's tons of funding probably out there that, you know, could be sought after to make something like this happen.
Yeah.
Well, that the other thing I was thinking of is, you know, what every state's different. Like I know in North Carolina, there's 100 counties. In Arizona, there's what, 9? There's some counties in some rural places that have got, you know, that are just barren and they're not that big. And then Maricopa County is like the second largest populated county in the country. So just throwing out the counties to do it doesn't work. But maybe you guys have thought of this. You can't go any smaller than a county, right?
I guess you could start with whatever you wanted, to be honest with you. But I mean, yes, I see where you're going with the county idea.
Yeah, because you have I guess whoever can, and every state's different, but I know in Arizona it's based on county, has the county assessor,
sure,
you know, has
city,
their maps, right?
Also, like when you get down to Tucson, the city of Tucson has their own plats and survey records, not just Pima County. So, I mean, sometimes they're shared, sometimes they're not. So it's the same issue that these guys are dealing with, you know.
And then there may be some territorial stuff, like, you know, the city of Tucson doesn't want to share with Pima County or vice versa. And
dude, my mind is
all these pissing contests, right?
My mind is racing right now. Think about, what was the guy's name we had on that was trying to build a cadastre in Mexico? Remember?
Yeah.
He was like working with developing countries to set up a cadastre that didn't currently exist. Perfect application for something like this.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good question for Rich. In your research, have you found countries where where they could be at that 1912 Switzerland moment and they can decide right then, okay, this is how we're going to do it?
I know there's countries out there, but I can't name them right off the top of my head.
So maybe that's the pilot program, as we find that.
Well, let's make it somewhere where we want to go.
Okay, good, fair enough.
Especially in the summertime.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So
so we can get the hell out of here. It's too freaking hot.
Yeah, something north. Maybe Canada usually does a good job, but maybe Greenland.
That's a little too far north.
Okay, sorry. Iceland.
Let me look at the weather. So anyways, let's back to my question about how this could be funded. I'm sure that you've thought about this a lot. Like, what are some ideas as far as that goes? Like, what would be the first step?
Well, it's an issue of identifying where is the money, and I've done a little research on that, and counties are charging a 0.5% sales tax in Wisconsin for capital improvements. Matt has brought up a very interesting point that these should be considered, what do you call it, Matt? Infrastructure? Important infrastructure?
Critical infrastructure.
Critical infrastructure. Yeah, I saw that. That's a great idea.
There is money for critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
Every municipality has it.
Interesting.
And I think if I could explain this, or you all could explain this to 20 landowners in a room, I think they'd be all about it, because they're going to be saving money. And who's going to pay for it? I think the county that has developed these GIS in Wisconsin, there's 72, and they've all developed their own unique GIS system. When I practice land surveying, I have to limit where I go county-wise, because every county is so different. Okay. And forgot my point.
Well, if we try to tie it to critical infrastructure, then it could be the official way. You know, it's a byproduct of the platting, but then you get solid agreed upon right away. And if any city or county is going to go and improve anything in anywhere, they need to establish where that right of way is. So you could frame it that way of this is just basically saving the survey portion of all this critical infrastructure work.
Sure.
And the byproduct is you get the other three sides of the parcel, because everyone connects to some sort of public right of way.
Yeah. So interesting.
Or PUEs or any of that.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, there's like $628 million in 1 year generated in 0.5% sales tax in all the Wisconsin counties. So that's $628 million.
It's crazy.
Are we saying there's nothing for the landowners to benefit and save those landowners money for resurveying their parcels? And I think it's kind of not right that counties can put out this GIS information, and everybody in my county accesses this GIS information. And they can see their property on there, but they go, well, county, where are my property boundaries? We don't know. Go hire a private surveyor. Well, if you're going to tax somebody for their property, which is what's going on, and that's what's in this GIS, it's a tax and assessment based GIS. That's what it's all about. You can tax and assess people for property, but you can't tell them where the extents of their property are. You can't tell them where the boundaries are. I just think that's not really.
Wow.
That doesn't fly with me.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a very good point there. Very
I
good
think
point.
I think there's a big on the, as far as the counties are concerned, like, once if they do a determination on a corner, and now that just pissed off 4 landowners on this side, they don't want that liability. So like the way that they did GX was they just, there's a big caveat in there, but they did the work. So they did enough work that you should be able to do your homework to come up with a solution for that, to where the county's not fully responsible, but hey, they did, they spent $2 million on the research to give you all the breadcrumbs to be able to solve that. They just don't want to be the one, saying that it's here, and then now the whole subdivision could be up. You know what I mean? It's just, but as a landowner, you're like, yes, I want common corners, as long as that son of a bitch isn't 2 feet onto my property,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
But I think Matt's really onto something, is tying it to funds that have already been allocated, and you're never going to sell this if you have to ask people for more money, even if it saves them money, and even if it's the best idea ever.
Yeah.
Immediately you're going to lose 50% of the people, because they're just going to say, nope, nothing in. You got to take away something before we add anything. So if then you say, oh, we're just going to allocate 1% of this 680 million and spend $6 million a year doing this, and property owners benefit, then I think you might have a case there.
Oh yeah,
I could
use it as like the GDAC use case, because you can show them they spent this much money on it, and now 20 years later, we've more than quadrupled that amount in savings. I mean, you can look at any other county.
Yeah. The one thing about GDAX, though, that it still frustrates me to no end is they've spent all this money. They have all the section corners monumented, and there's a coordinate on them and this and that. But this is a whole nother conversation. But why in the hell are surveyors still having to go out in the center of these crazy ass intersections to survey these same section corners that have been surveyed 1,000 times? It drives me insane.
So why are surveyors setting up in the middle of the road? Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's no legitimate reason for that.
Again and again and again.
Surveyors have to be trained through education that you don't need to risk your life in the middle of the road trying to get the survey done. That's my opinion.
Yes. I'm in 100% agreement with you. The one thing I can see being a bit of a nightmare is from like a tax assessment perspective, right? Because people's taxes are based on square footage of their property, right? I mean, there'd probably be a bunch of adjustments that need to be made there.
But are we talking significant adjustments? And
wouldn't
aren't we
think
just?
so.
But
I wouldn't think so.
but if you look at it as a whole, aren't you just your neighbor gets a little less and you get a little more, but in the end,
everyone's happy.
you're still it's not going to generate any more revenue for the municipality.
Yeah, I see what
It's
you're
just
saying.
going to piss off half the people and make the other half a little happier.
Yeah.
So at that point, maybe you just hold that, or there's got to be a way around that where you're not.
I would imagine
You're not letting because at some point the trickle down effects can just stop. You're like, you know what? We're just not gonna.
Yeah,
we're not worried about this part. We're just gonna grandfather in this. And I think you may be splitting hairs there.
I've always thought that assessment is a kind of a plus and minus situation anyway.
Sure.
Assessors are dealing with abstracts and you know, so it's a plus and minus situation, I believe. But we could get an assessor on here and ask him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I get the idea that you kind of like this.
Oh, I think it's a phenomenal idea.
I can tell.
Well, it's just,
I think I do too. I mean, when Rich first sent me, or Matt, one of you guys sent me the article, you know, there was an XYHT, and then, you know, Rich, I appreciate you sending me the non-edited version of the same article. I'm like, this makes a lot of freaking sense.
Well, then you're also like, wait, but what am I gonna do?
No, but I just think it.
Yeah, there's like Richard, there is plenty of things for surveyors to do.
Yeah,
we're good at a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, like you said, Matt, I mean, we're expert measurers, right? Let's take advantage of that.
Well, I did before, you know, we're kind of running long on time, and I did want to circle back with Matt because in our bio, I didn't want to change gears completely, but in the bio, Matt talked about moving from 150 person survey firm to a 2-person survey company, and then kind of growing that back up. And we do talk about culture some on this show, so I do want to get just a little bit of Matt's perspective on how that went. You know, you said that's one of your defining career, you know, items. You know, talk a little bit about
3 hours ago.
I know, right? But talk a little bit about that transition. How did it go from being a mid-sized, you know, company to back in the garage?
Yeah, well, you know, I guess I actually tried that for a brief stint on my own to go into business for myself back in when I got let go by my first company back in 2007 or something. You know,
Been there.
Yeah, you know, so and I think that's a story that a lot of surveyors had. You know, there's a lot of bouncing around and looking for work and going from here to there. And, you know, I was unemployed twice, you know, and I ended up going the last company that I left was actually a company that let me go prior. So I hopped into survey sales for like 3 years, which I learned a lot. I learned about scanning. I just learned that survey is such a small industry. I learned about equipment. I appreciate my time there, but then that company that had previously let me go, they said, hey, we know you learned about scanning. Do you want to come back in and work for us again? So then I spent 5 more years there, met my current boss partner, and we just kind of hit it off. And, you know, it's just cool. I've just been blessed. You know, Lord's directed my life as I look back on it. And I just thank him for bringing me along and providing for me all through those years of uncertainty, you know.
Sure.
But, and I'm thankful for the step I made, and it's been fun. It's to grow a company. You know, it's being an entrepreneur, and it's hard, man. I'm kind of burning right now, but it's been good. So
yeah. Well said. I appreciate that. One thing I want to circle back on before we start to wrap this up. So I think it's funny, Matt, you said that you met Rich as a result of like a boundary dispute or what have you. Did you guys, was it an amicable resolution?
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are friends.
It was. I mean, my theory was that the landowner I set some visible lath at the request of the landowner, just so he could know where his line was. And he told me during the survey that he had his own equipment, a level, not transit or a theodolite or a total station. So I could tell he was going to move my lath after I left. So when Matt's crew went out there and found this, they go, well, let's call up LEAVER and see what's going on here. So I said, well, I'm pretty certain the landowner moved the lath after I set them.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got together.
That's awesome.
In this scenario, would you guys have ever met?
Yeah. Yeah, like if you had the Swiss model, that never would have happened.
Never would have happened.
So I met Matt years ago. Prior to that, he was working with equipment sales out of Milwaukee. And he was in my house actually, but we didn't pick things up until recently. So I'm very happy that Matt's on board because he understands. I mean, I don't have to say much, and he can get it. That's my hope for the younger professional surveyors, is that like Matt, he gets it. He's had enough bad experiences in his current land surveying situation that he understands the need for change, and that's what this is all about. Change. And change for the better for everybody, not just the landowners, but the surveyors, the GIS people, everybody down the line is going to benefit from this. Oh, before I forget, there is a cost benefits analysis done by Switzerland on their system. And they provided it to us. It was in German, unfortunately, but it was translated to English, and that was given to our people at the Wisconsin Land Information, not board, but it's they're part of the Land Information Program for the state of Wisconsin. They have they have a GIS officer down there. There's some other people, and this report was given to them. I actually met with those people. In Wisconsin, we've had a program of modernizing land records for the last 30 years. I'm sorry, my smoke alarm is going off, so
Smoke alarm.
I'll let somebody else talk while I check it out. Thank you.
That's a first. His house is on fire. Oh my God.
Mine, I know I had a problem with one of mine a couple weeks ago, but
yeah. That's funny. That's funny. So Matt, what like this is I love this conversation. Like talking about things outside the box. This is what we do.
Yeah,
that's what this platform is for, to have these conversations. And this has been a doozy. And it's one that we could probably continue to talk about for the next 3 hours, which I'm in favor of, but Sean probably not so much.
Well, just because I got to look out for our listeners, and but one thing I will note is this will come up. I love episodes that create questions for other guests.
Oh yeah.
And this is one of those where we'll have other guests on and be like, hey, we had this came up, I'm curious what you think about it. And then all of a sudden that's kind of how this unravels. And then we circle back with these guys and in about a couple months, 6 months, and see where we're at.
Yeah. And Rich, Matt, is there any reason that we should be planning a trip to Switzerland? Sean, weren't you just saying that we have some excess budget? Should we go to Switzerland, and would you dig into this?
That out loud? It's one of those things. It's like you don't tell your wife, oh man, I got a bonus this month. Like that. No. But we may be in Europe here this upcoming year, so there may be an opportunity to swing down.
Swing on by Switzerland on our way.
I did it last year. Spent a little time in Zurich and Lucerne. It was quite lovely.
Yeah. A little costly, but. Yeah, costly. But anyway,
that's why the cost of living is so high in Switzerland, is because they're just paying out the butt for all these surveys. That's what it is.
I do think it'd be a really good idea, though, Rich. You mentioned the gentleman that was kind of like your point of contact there or whatever. I'm not sure what his English is like, but it would be really cool to have this conversation and loop him into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, his English is fairly good. I mean, it's not 100%, but I was 95.
Yeah, well, neither is Kent, so.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. And Will, you're like on the front line of this. Like, just coincidentally, you're having conversations as we speak about this topic, So this is very interesting. The timing could be uncanny.
Yeah, definitely. But I love.
There's other people in Switzerland that like to talk too. So I mean, it's not just Dr. Daniel Stoiler. There's other people that we've met on our trip and I've been in touch with through the years, and wonderful people. They like to show off their system, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Well, we would love to give them a platform to do that. So let's talk about that as well. as well. So, Will, did you have anything else?
No, it's been great. You guys, I always love when a guest opens up another pathway to, other ways of thinking about things. And, it just makes sense. So I appreciate it. And thank you guys for, all the energy and work you put into it. Cause it does have a place, and I'm on board.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
Will.
Super
Thank you,
cool.
Will.
And I'm sure we've established some new open lines of communication and friendships here, which is always amazing. One last quick fire question before we let you guys get out of here. And Will, I'm going to start with you, actually. Fill in the blank on this. The future of surveying depends on?
Involvement.
I like it. Matt, what say you? The future of surveying depends on?
If we want to survive.
Survival.
I say survival.
There you go.
I think it's that critical.
Yeah, I can't say that I disagree. Rich, what do you say to that? The future of surveying depends on?
Recognizing our current situation and realizing there's a much better model out there that we can follow that will benefit everybody.
I love it. That's awesome.
Admitting there's a problem.
Yeah, that's
some
the
people
first
say
step,
that's
right?
the first step. Yeah.
Admitting there's a problem.
The first step to admitting you're a geoholic is admitting there's a problem.
Admitting you're a geoholic, yes.
It's awesome. Good stuff, man. Sean, you got anything else?
I do. I have one question I ask every single guest before we let them go, and I'm going to give both you guys an opportunity to answer this. And I'll start with you, Matt. Matt, do you have a mantra that you live by?
Faith, family, freedom.
Love it.
One. Good.
Can't go wrong there. Rich, take us out. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
God first in everything.
Love it. Good stuff.
No wonder you guys are friends. You think very similarly. Can't disagree with that at all.
Indeed. Well, hey, guys, thank you so much for this conversation. I know we've just scratched the surface. We're definitely going to have a follow-up show without a doubt, and maybe one where Will can be in studio and we can really get in the weeds on this stuff. So, Will, thanks for hopping on. I know you're super busy, and we really appreciate it as well. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you all.
Thank you.
All right. Adding value, making friends.
Check that box.
Undeniable. If anyone would like to be a guest on a future show, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com, just like these guys did.
Yep.
Just like these guys did. Sex Type Thing, Stone Temple Pilots, available everywhere. Until next time, everyone. Faith, family, freedom. And what was the other one? What was yours, Rich? Put God first.
Yeah,
God first in everything.
Yep.
Good stuff. As always, be safe and healthy, everybody.